In South Carolina, police are alerted to an abandoned car in a field.
The windows on the vehicle appeared to be black and soot-covered.
The car is empty. A license plate search finds the owner lives 12 miles away.
They got no response at the front door. As the officer walks into the backyard, there were 2 male victims in there, both with gunshot wounds to their head.
Finding no one else at the property, CSIs scope out the scene. The gunshot victims are identified as the homeowner and his 25-year-old son, Robert and Robbie Ford.
The older victim, Robert, is on the ground at the back of the house with a close contact gunshot wound under his chin. The younger, Robbie, is found off to the side of the driveway. He has a gunshot wound to the back of his head and a gunshot wound to the upper right shoulder. The doors to the residence were locked, so neither victim had gone into the house yet. Robbie appeared to be trying to flee. His cell phone was found next to his body, and the pocket that it was in had been pulled out of his shorts as if he was frantically trying to get his phone out to call for help.
As well as the family car, Robert and Robbie's wallets have been taken from their pockets.
There had been a burglary reported at Robert's home. One of the things that had been reported stolen was a .38 caliber revolver. It's just one of those things that's sort of interesting and makes you go, is this some sort of pattern? But some of the things that sort of counted against that was that it did not appear that their home had been entered.
It appears both victims were returning home when someone came upon them. This is clearly an ambush type of situation. Good Southern people who lived here their whole lives. They were well liked by their neighbors.
From everyone who I have spoken to, Robert was a devoutly religious man. He was extremely involved in his church. He taught Sunday school along with his late wife. He was the choir director. He sang in the men's choir and in the quartet. Just a very well-respected member of the community. Robbie Ford was a devoted son and was a hardworking student working towards an architecture degree.
CSIs suspect the men were killed several hours ago.
Fired shell casings.
The autopsy confirms they were shot at point-blank range with the same .38 caliber firearm. In search of a motive, the team looks deeper into their lives. Robert has 2 children, Robbie and Samantha.
Samantha Ford Rabon, Robert's daughter from a previous marriage, spent much of her time with her mother but would visit her father often on the weekends. He and his first wife were divorced fairly early on, and then Robert remarried and married Robbie's mother, and they were married for 26 years before she died. Robbie and Samantha were in constant communication. By all accounts, the family was very close. They would spend holidays together. They would often bring meals to each other.
Still no closer to identifying who wanted Robert and Robbie dead. The team needs a forensic breakthrough. Detectives request the men's phone data and begin to track their last known movements, while CSIs turn their attention to the stolen car.
We certainly believed that whoever drove that car was the person who had killed Robert and Robbie.
Whoever would have driven the vehicle there may have left fingerprints, DNA. After searching in over a 200-foot radius around the vehicle and finding nothing, as I approach the vehicle closer, there are cigarette butts on the ground just outside the driver's door. If the car was parked on a roadway, the cigarette butts may not be relevant at all. But in this particular case, there's 3 of them just outside the driver's door of this vehicle.
The cigarettes are sent for forensic testing.
Cigarette butts are an incredibly good source of DNA evidence.
Once I open the vehicle up, I can smell some type of a flammable liquid. I'm seeing charring on the steering wheel, the driver's seat, the console in the vehicle.
Initially, the thought that the car had suffered so much fire damage was thought to be a setback. But as we are looking more at the scene, we realize that the car was not completely engulfed in flames.
By closing the doors and windows, the oxygen in the vehicle was consumed by the fire and actually smothered itself. Inside the vehicle, a ski cap and sweatpants were found. Although they had smoke and a little bit of fire damage, they may hold a DNA profile.
Using CCTV and phone data, detectives have pieced together Robert and Robbie's final hours.
Robert and Robbie were looking for an apartment in the Charleston area for Robbie, who was going to be studying there the next semester. So they had traveled down there, looked at a few apartments, and then stopped for dinner on the way home.
While at the restaurant, Samantha messages Robbie. This is the last time anyone was in contact with the men. At 9:15, their neighbor hears gunshots.
There are quite a few lawfully possessed guns in Horry County, so it's not unusual to hear gunshots. But what was different in this case was that it was a number of gunshots interrupted by a scream.
10 minutes later, Robert's car is caught on camera.
We had surveillance video from a nearby business showing the car being driven past. That was on the route that would have been traveled from the scene of the murder to where the car was found. And that was very helpful in establishing the timeline of that night.
Now able to pinpoint when Robert and Robbie were killed, the team confirms alibis for all relatives. The evidence recovered from the car is the last remaining lead. The cigarettes and the ski cap return the same male DNA profile. It's run through the police database, CODIS.
Unfortunately, in this case, CODIS did not give us a hit.
A year later, they find out if it's been worth the wait.
They're able to give us the names of 3 brothers. 2 of those brothers were already in the CODIS system, so investigators were able to rule them out, leaving us with that one remaining brother, Randy Grainger.
At the time of the murders, Grainger was living close to the scene of the Ford's abandoned car.
Grainger did have a criminal history for kidnapping and robbery. He had actually spent 15 years in the prison system, but he was released just prior to the passage of the act that allowed the collection of DNA for this database that we now know as CODIS. And so he sort of just missed that cutoff.
Grainger has a military background. Here is somebody who's been trained to survive under combat and follow orders. Somebody who is familiar with using a gun and able to kill at close range.
But to secure a warrant for Grainger's arrest, the team still needs a direct DNA sample, as forensic genetic genealogy is not always admissible in court due to concerns over quality.
When we are using cell tower data, what we try to do is identify 3 locations of interest. In this case, they identified the scene where the car was abandoned, the murder scene, and Samantha's home because she was the last person we knew who had contacted the victims. He actually turned his phone off at the murder scene, but we were able to squarely place him at the scene of the abandoned car.
At 10:15, Grainger calls his girlfriend, Teresa Martin.
At the time of the murders, they were living together. We had him pinging at the car scene because he had to call Teresa to pick him up.
When the results of the DNA swab come back, Grainger is cornered.
The cigarette butt that was collected from the ground came back as a match to the profile developed in this case.
The team still needs to identify who recruited him.
You're not the one I want to deal with on this. know you didn't do this by yourself. What I want is the person who asked you to do it.
Do what?
You really want to play stupid? I'm serious now. Because I got you right now for at least 2 counts of murder, arson, criminal conspiracy for something that wasn't your idea. I want the person who hired you to do it or asked you to do it.
Don't feel good once you get it off shoulders.
Samantha had been on our radar the whole time. Robert's 2 sisters were really going after the investigators. Samantha, on the other hand, really was not interested in how the investigation was going, and I think that that's something that sort of keyed the detectives to look at her more closely.
With the focus now on Robert's daughter, Samantha, investigators still need to verify Teresa's confession, but find no evidence of Samantha and Grainger having ever communicated. They need to find out if someone acted as the go-between. The murder. Cell site data shows Teresa and Samantha were in contact 24 times.
She helped lay the groundwork. She provided the connection between Samantha Rabon and Randy Grainger. Teresa Martin tells us that Samantha Rabon approached her and asked her to bring Randy Grainger to her, that she had a job for him to do. And when Teresa Martin brings Randy Grainger together with Samantha Rabon, Rabon asks Grainger, will you take care of my dad and my brother? And it's got to be done this weekend.
I know this is the hard part to say, but you knew he was going to kill them people.
No, I didn't. Honest to God, I did not. On my daddy's grave, I did not.
Did he tell you that day that he had a job?
He said that he had Samantha hired him to do a job at her daddy's house. That's all I know.
Okay, hold. Now, did he tell you that day and then ask you to bring him over there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I dropped him off in the road. I never pulled in the driveway or nothing.
Well, no, that's fine. I understand.
Yeah. And I left. That's all that's got through.
What was Randy supposed to get out of it?
I say she was supposed to pay him $20,000.
Okay.
Samantha and Randy really only had that one deadly contact when she asked him to kill her father and brother. Grainger studiously avoided contact with Samantha because he knew that anyone who was in contact with her would become a target for police.
Recover disturbing searches in Samantha's internet history.
Legally, we don't have to prove motive, but sometimes you have to convince the jury. Because otherwise, like, why would she kill them? You want to give them a reason why she would.
Masterminding her father and brother's murders, Samantha Rabon is taken into custody.
Do you want to talk to us?
No.
Investigators follow the money.
Before the murder, Samantha was living in a single-wide trailer that had a value of approximately $32,000. After the murders, the properties that she inherited were worth quite a bit more than that, not to mention pensions, savings accounts, so she ended up inheriting over $1 million. What we came to find out is that Robbie was the primary beneficiary to many of Robert's assets.
She wanted both of them killed before he left to go to college because she knew if her daddy got killed, then she would have to split everything with Rob.
Grainger is given 2 life sentences. Martin takes a plea deal. Both agree to testify against Samantha. Samantha is found guilty of Robert and Robbie's murders and sentenced to life without parole.